What is up, ladies and gentle nerds? It's your boy Graham, also known as Hamhocks42 on the internet, and we are here with another unplanned, unscripted, unedited, totally raw edition of Overthinking MTG. All right, we are on the Gatherer. Let's go ahead and scroll down, hit everybody's favorite card, favorite button rather, the random card button. Ooh, okay, we got a spicy one today, my friends. We are looking at Damia, Sage of Stone. And if you are like me and you follow a lot of commander content that is out there, be that the folks over at Game Nights, the Command Zone, which happen to be the same people in a lot of, generally, um, or there are a million different podcasts and different channels that are all pumping out Commander content. If you look at EDA Trek, if you're listening to podcasts like Loading Ready Run or Good Luck High Five, all kinds of, and of course, all the good stuff over at Tolarian Community College, and not to mention the EDA Trek cast, which I've been listening to a lot of recently, and I gotta say, good stuff. Um, you hear a lot about there are certain names that come up a lot when you're listening to veteran commander players, and Damia is one of those. It's one of those names that I've heard quite a bit, and I've seen her in use, but I'll be honest, only once or twice. So I'm not as familiar with her. So here we go, and which is kind of interesting because it looks like she should fit right in my wheelhouse, or at least her color identity certainly does. All right. Damia, Sage of Stone, is a 4/4 legendary creature Gorgon wizard for 7. It's 4 generic, 1 black, 1 green, 1 blue. So we have Sultai colors, and we have a 4/4 for 7, which tells me that we're going to have something interesting in the rules box. So here we go. Death Touch, skip your draw step. Okay, 4/4 for 4, Death Touch, Gorgon, that all checks out. But then, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have fewer than 7 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference. Holy cow, that is fantastic. That is like that's insane. The kind of stuff you can do with that because I mean, it just you in any kind of a deck that has a lot of low cost cards. I mean, that's the very first thing I think of. Easiest way to take advantage of this is just have a bunch of low cost cards, empty out your hand, and then if your hand is completely empty, then at the beginning of your turn you draw 7 cards. That's that's awesome. And not only that, you draw them. Draw cards equal to the difference. It's not one of those weird situations where those cards go to your hand. It's not like Atris, Oracle of Half Truths, or Drawn from Dreams. Those ones where you look at cards and then they go, and then you put them in your hand. Well, those aren't drawing, and the reason that that matters is because of cards that trigger off of drawing cards. So in this kind of a situation, you can create loops where the more cards you draw, different triggers hit. Oh my goodness, this is just one of those pieces like when there are certain ways when you're looking at different combo pieces, you have your finishers, your payoffs, you have your setup pieces, you have your enablers. I'm looking at this and it's like this is just the engine, like Damia Sage of Stones. That is just there are so many different things you can do with what she gives you because what she gives you, well, one, you skip your draw step, and believe it or not, there are ways to abuse that. Like there's stuff you can do there, but that's really particular. But at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have fewer than 7 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference. So you're drawing on your upkeep, not your draw step. Okay, that's interesting. So if there are any cards that have some kind of downside where they impact your draw step, or any cards that allow you to draw multiple cards on your draw step, those don't apply anymore. So all of a sudden, if I'm not mistaken, Howling Mine has you drawing additional cards during your draw step. If somebody has a Howling Mine on the board, well, all of a sudden with Damia, you're skipping your draw step, so you're not going to get that advantage. Okay, so that kind of sucks, but the moment you hit your upkeep, you're going to check how many cards are in your hand, you're going to draw that many cards anyway, so you're not going to be super bummed. It's like, oh, you don't get up to 8, because you don't get that 1 extra from Howling Mine, you only draw 4 this turn because you only had 3 cards in hand. Oh, boo-hoo. Yeah, you're not going to be mad. So I see a couple of things here. I mean, obviously, whenever I think of drawing cards, the very first thing I think of is Niv Mizzet, just because he's awesome with any kind of card draw effects. Fortunately, they were aware of that with Damia, and they made it so that she's Sultai, um, meaning black, green, blue. You do not have access to red, therefore, you cannot combine her with Niv Mizzet in a commander game. That was very smart because holy cow, the kind of degenerate nonsense you'd be able to get up with those two. But but you do have access to a number of other things. You have access to black, which is just in general one of the most powerful colors in the game as far as just sheer punching power as well as just sheer utility. With black, you can draw cards, you can create large creatures, you can siphon, suck life out of your opponents, you can gain life yourself, you can do all kinds of great stuff. Then you also have green, which is the color that gives you access to the most ridiculous mana ramp available. So what you have there is with her, like one of the best opening hands you could possibly have is like 3 or 4 land ramps. So like I want a forest, a wild growth, a rampant growth, and a soul ring, of course. Like all these different ramps ramp up like crazy. Hit her out on like turn 4, and then all of a sudden you've emptied out your hand with a bunch of ramp spells. Ramp meaning spells that give you access to mana faster. I'm trying to I use a lot of the kind of the lingo, and I know most of you out there are familiar, and that's cool. But for any folks who aren't, if I stop and slow down and kind of explain things a little bit more, I want to make sure that this all makes sense. Um, yeah, so you have access to that. So a lot of really low cost ramp stuff. That way you can in the later games, you're gonna want to spend cards. You want to spend cards out of your hand because the more cards you spend out of your hand, the faster you get to ramp up. The other thing that you have access to here is blue. The beautiful part about having access to blue is counter spells and bounce spells. Holy crap, the kind of stuff you can do with those. And the best part is with Damia at the head of things, you aren't worried about spending too many cards. So what you need to do is you need to have a whole bunch of really low cost ramp spells and a whole bunch of low cost counter spells. This is one of the situations where having a mess of counters in your hand is actually a good thing in Commander because as it's going around the table, as the turn is progressing around the table, you being able to respond to people is really important. And then on top of that, as you cast spells out of your hand, every single time you cast a spell, you get to draw an extra one when your turn rolls around. That's amazing. And you have access to blue and green, so all the Simic Flash nonsense that we see in Standard with things like Frilled Mystic, or I think there's Frilled Snake, which is the older version of it, all of a sudden those are fantastic. Those are amazing. You can do all kinds of stuff with that. Creatures with Flash here all of a sudden are great too. Vidalgan Orrery, Seedborn Muse, Wilderness Reclamation, stuff that gives you access to cards or access to resources on your opponent's turn. The ability to cast stuff just crazy fast, and the ability to cast things at instant speed is huge. The ability to spend cards out of your hand is huge because you're getting all that value and then you're drawing more cards. Oh my goodness. Extra card, can you imagine extra turn spells with this too? Being able to double up, like hitting a time warp here where you take 2 extra turns after this one and being able to just throw out everything all at once. Oh man, this is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Okay, you know what? I've been looking for a good Sultai commander. I have Tassagir. He's great. I'm a big fan, but mm, Damia might actually be the next commander I build. This is fantastic. I'm a big fan. And it's a 4/4 with Death Touch, which is just a nice little perk, so she's not susceptible to Lightning Bolt. Now, which is all great. Now, there is one problem that I see with Damia specifically, and maybe as a result, I should put her in the 99 and not actually build the deck around her, because what she does not have is she does not have a particularly low mana cost. She costs 7, and she's an engine. She's a setup piece. She's not the finisher. And So that's a challenge that I've run into in the past with commander decks that I learned a lesson of the hard way on that. I had an original Borborygmos deck, and not Borborygmos Enraged. He rules. No, the original Borborygmos is a Cyclops that whenever he deals combat damage, he's got trample. I think he's a 7/7 for 7. And when he deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on all creatures you control. Now that ability is very powerful, and you think that that would be great. However, he doesn't have haste, and he costs 7. And I found in every single game when I tried to play him, um, and he has access to two colors, but it's red and green. And every single time that I tried to play him and I tried to get him down, by the time he hit the board, all of my opponents had access to board wipes, bounces, or some kind of kill spell. And so he just never had a chance to actually hit. And so I was thinking, clearly he's a setup commander, and I really need a little bit of time to really get the ball rolling. And the problem is waiting until turn 7 to just start that ball rolling was way too slow. I have no doubt that the rest of that deck could have been better, but still, that concept I think was just flawed from the get-go. So when I tore that deck apart, it actually felt kind of nice, because I don't know that that one was ever going to work. Now, Damia has a similar situation where she is an engine, and there's a condition that you need to meet in order to make her really successful. Um, and she costs 7. So if you get her down and then somebody hits her with like Path of Exile or Swords to Plowshares, and all of a sudden she's going right back into your command zone for 9, or and then the commander tax makes her cost 9 to come out. Oof, you are in a rough spot. So you've got to have just so much ramp in order to really take advantage of her, to actually get her down. Then I would also be running Leyline of Anticipation and Vidalganori, like everything, and Emergent Zone, like every single thing that can possibly give you flash, because the best thing you can possibly do is ramp like crazy, have access to all of the mana in the world, and have the ability to cast her at instant speed. If that situation can occur, you're going to be in really good shape here, and you can do a lot of fun things. The other benefit that I see here is being able to minimize the number of card draw spells you have. That's something that you just don't necessarily need, and you can devote those slots in your deck to ramp spells or other small interactive spells. Um, and the reason I keep saying small is so that you can play multiple a turn. You really, like in the early game, being able to just hit one or two things and just keep moving and just keep kind of holding pace with your opponents on board is always good. But then in the later game, people are ramping up into bigger spells, just generally speaking. But this deck can actually ramp up into more and more spells because you're going to be restocking your hand every frickin' turn. So if you can get Damia with a Seedborn Muse and a whole bunch of counter spells up, whoo, just oh my goodness. Nobody's going to be able to touch you, and you're going to be able to lock down the board really effectively. Yeah, this is pretty cool. So this commander is great. Damia, Sage of Stone, and she's just a really sinister looking Gorgon on top of all of it. And her snakes, oddly enough, the snakes on her head, are green at the roots, but they're actually red at the ends. I don't know if she dyed them at some point, or if that's just the species that she has. Anyway, good stuff. This is all really cool. I got to say, Damia, Sage of Stone, pretty great. I definitely recommend, and I'm going to make sure to go get my hands on one as well because I want to build that deck. That sounds like a whole lot of fun. And and she has flavor text too, because her text box actually for including a lot of really great stuff was relatively tight. So ask your query and be on your way. Just don't look her in the eye. Well, that's fun. Definitely speaks to the whole Medusa Gorgon stare. Anyway, yeah, that's fun. All right, guys. This has been a good time, as always. I will catch you here tomorrow. Also, I stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/hamhocks42, and I'm also on Discord. That link is actually in the description, or or in the the podcast description or the YouTube description, wherever you are. You got my username. Hit me up. All right, catch you later.